anything.
Of course not. That's because I haven't started the music. Huh. Yeah. All righty, here we are, the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Welcome back on a Monday, a very, very hot Monday here in the Sports Porch studios. The Sports Porch Philadelphia comes to you live on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Fantasy Alpha Crowd, and YouTube. And of course, you can catch the podcast right after the show. We drop it on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify,
Or anywhere you get your freaking podcast.
That was pretty good, Schwaber.
Yep.
That was pretty good. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to talk Philadelphia sports today, of course. We're going to talk about the Sixers, a recent signing. We're going to talk about the Phillies. They set a club record.
7 All-Star.
Yes. And then something that's really blowing up online on Facebook, especially here on Philadelphia Beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that is the 2024 Greater Philadelphia Cheesesteak Challenge.
My creation.
And that is the creation of yours truly.
My baby.
The Grand Schwabini. So
to that baby.
So you can also follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. Let's go to page one. Page one is the 76ers. They're rounding out the roster. Of course, if you're paying attention at all, like the Grand Schwabini is, you know that they have signed Caleb Martin. Welcome to Philadelphia, Caleb Martin. So let's talk about that signing, Schwaber. What does that bring to the Sixers?
Yeah, I think it's a really good signing. So he'll presumably be the 5th starter. Okay, so
right.
you got Embiid, Maxey, Paul George, Kelly Oubre,
right,
and Caleb Martin will be the 5th starter. And what I really like about him is he's an energy guy.
Yeah,
when you look back at the series against the Knicks and they were just getting out rebounded by the Knicks.
Right,
this is the kind of guy who, he might be hanging out at the 3-point line, but all of a sudden a shot goes up and it has a crazy angle off of the rim and he comes down with the rebound. You get another possession.
Okay. So this makes them better.
Yeah, it makes them better. He's also he's a 6'5", kind of guard / forward, who can, bring it to the rim and can dunk. He's also a good 3-point shooter. And he's also played some of his best ball in the playoffs. In fact, he used to play for the Miami Heat, and he was kind of a Boston Celtics killer,
right?
In some series against the Celtics.
Definite positive there.
So yeah, definite positive. So I really like the way the team is rounding out. Maybe there'll be one more move left. Maybe not. I don't know. It'll all kind of depend. But they're in a really good spot, a much better spot than they've been in years.
Yeah.
Yeah. In years. So, Paul George, he has a podcast.
Right.
So, you get to see some of his stuff going on. It's pretty cool. He chose the number 8, the Mamba number, the Kobe number.
Yeah.
So he chose that because he couldn't have his 13 because I think that's Wilt Chamberlain retired.
Right.
And he seems pretty stoked. I mean, we were talking off air before, he did want to return to the Clippers because he's from LA.
Right.
But they did really disrespect him.
Yeah.
When you're a future Hall of Fame player, you can't just say to somebody like, we're not giving you the 4th year. We're only giving you 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in that world, he's disrespected.
Yeah, right. I mean, how much disrespect is
$200 million
losing out on $10, $20 million, $30 million.
Right. So, but it sounds like the Sixers did an incredible job, going out there to recruit him. They flew Dr. J out.
Right.
They also had, I learned they prepared a video for him of a whole slew of Philadelphia athletes. So they had Bryce Harper, they had Saquon Barkley, a whole bunch of guys, basically saying, hey, come to Philly. We want you here. It's the best place to play, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, he was really, impressed with that.
Yeah. Well, he wanted to play with Embiid too.
Yeah, he did. And that was the other thing. He said that I thought it was a really good opportunity because, Embiid is he said, like, I think he caught himself because he didn't want to like be talking trash on Jokic, but he was
Right.
like, he's the best big in the game, or certainly one of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's like, and you got like a point guard like Maxey who's coming into his prime.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and it just seems like his whole family just sort of felt like, it was for him, it was like the Sixers really wanted me.
Yeah. 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 Well, so the addition of Caleb Martin kind of rounds out that starting five now.
Mm-hmm.
They look a lot different than they did 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They look a lot different than they did last year.
Yep.
They got 2 new draft picks coming in.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a different big man behind Embiid, who's going to be a little bit more effective at the very least.
Yeah, for sure.
So once again, it's going to come down to who can stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the reality.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that you now have a team where there's no pressure on Embiid to have to carry the whole team,
or less pressure.
Pressure.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so if he doesn't have his best game, Maxey and Paul George could go off, or one of the role players could go off, and you'd be fine and you'd win the game. So it's not like it's all up to him.
Yeah. And I think that's what they were lacking the last few years is if Embiid didn't carry the team, at best they would tread water.
Right.
And that's just not going to do it.
Right.
Because you can't, you also, let's say they make it through the season and Embiid doesn't miss any significant time with an injury.
Right.
Well, by the end of the year, he's tired.
Right.
And now you've got to ramp it up for the playoffs. And now to be asked to carry a team on your back is even harder. And it's not that players haven't done it, and it's not that they can't do it, but it's actually easier to carry a team on your back if you know somebody else has your back.
Right.
So I think they've done a really good job of putting together a nucleus of players here. Now, the key is going to be when they're all in Philadelphia together and they're practicing, and Nick Nurse is and they're running the plays and he's running the practices. How well do they gel and play together? And for all intents and purposes, right now, it seems like everybody's happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take some time.
We all know Philadelphia is filled with egos.
Yeah.
Even if they're not there, there's something about playing professional sports in Philly that brings out either the best or the worst. I got a funny story about Bryce Harper I'm going to tell you during, you may know it already, but I'll tell you when we get to the Phillies page 2. So,
yeah, I mean, I think what it comes down to is, the team is still essentially going to be run in a very similar way.
Right.
It's still, everything's going to go through Embiid.
Right.
And then you've got all the shooters around Embiid.
Right.
And now instead of it now just being like Embiid and Maxey have to run the show, it's now Embiid and Maxey and George.
Right.
So, if one of Maxey or George is hot, that player is going to probably have a bigger game.
Right.
They're going to get the ball more.
Right.
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 Whereas, if you're just going through Embiid and then your second option is Maxey and Maxey's having an off game, now you basically have nothing.
No, you have nothing.
Right. You just have, one guy who can play.
I also feel like one of the places that the Sixers lacked in last year was offensive boards. They seemed to struggle even when Embiid was playing.
Mm-hmm.
Now they struggled less, but you need to be able to, you need those second chances to go in.
Right. And I think
they were struggling with that.
And I think like Caleb Martin is a forward who can rebound.
Right.
Andre Drummond is a backup center. You can also maybe play him some forward and he can rebound.
Right.
So, I think they've improved quite a bit. And we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, there's still some good players out there that you could get, like a pretty good 3-point shooter still out there. There's also the possibility, I mean, you never know. They could, for example, see, the one thing that I'm curious about is their number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
He's kind of the exact same player as Maxey.
Okay.
So in some ways, I think on one hand,
you're talking about Jared McCain.
Yeah.
From Duke.
Yeah.
Right.
I think on one hand, I get it if the thinking is let's just take the best player available, right?
Right.
But the other line of thinking is, did they pick him because he was the best player available and it didn't matter that he was not really a fit on the Sixers because we're going to use him as a trade chip? So
well, that hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't, but I wonder if he'll get traded and we've got a bunch of picks, and when you get these star players, so for example, there's this Lauri Markkanen that's still out there that Utah's kind of debating whether or not they want to trade. And they probably should because they just need to start over, right? The kind of package that maybe could get somebody like him might be like that first round pick,
right?
And maybe 2 firsts and 3 seconds,
right?
Something like that. So
right.
I wonder if something like that might happen.
Yeah, it's possible. Or maybe they were looking at it and saying, look, if he has the same style of game as Maxey.
He can spell Maxey.
He's right.
And then if Maxey gets hurt,
he's gonna he's another cog in the wheel, right. And they're not missing anything. So, it's going to be interesting that the season is not that far away. I mean,
no.
I mean, I'm very interested to see how these guys play together.
And to be honest, I mean, the thing that I'm least excited about is the freaking Olympics.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, I don't know why we need to have Embiid playing in the Olympics.
That's a scary thought.
And for Team USA. I mean, I know that he is a dual citizen.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't you feel like he's more Cameroon than USA?
I
mean, I would think so.
Yeah, well, maybe, but that doesn't even matter. It's the fact that they can get injured.
Right. But he just wants to play on a dream team.
Yeah, sure. Who doesn't?
Although I guess, the flip side of looking at it is it probably would be a good experience for him.
Sure.
If he was a part of a winning team. That won it all.
Yeah.
Won the gold medal. I think that probably counts for something.
It does, not the way it used to, though.
If he's a big part of it,
right? Right? Yeah, but you got to hold your breath. All of those sports, hockey, the World Baseball Classic, the Olympic basketball. I mean, of course, they don't do it in football because the possibility of injury is probably much greater, or serious injury anyway.
Well, nobody else plays,
and nobody else plays football the way we do. So I have always had to white knuckle those events because you want to see them win, but really that's not what they're getting paid to do,
right?
And
that's kind of the way I look at it. I also look at it like this, so maybe what we could do now is, transfer to the Phillies.
Yeah, sure. Let's move on to page two. Page two this week is the Phillies. And first, I want to remind you before we turn the page that you can follow the Sports Porch podcast on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or anywhere you get your podcast. That's the Sports Porch Philadelphia. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. Page two, the Phillies.
Now, before we get into the first of all,
talk about the Olympics. Go ahead. Yeah, you were transitioning.
Well, I was transferring. I was saying just the way I don't want Joel Embiid to play in the Olympics.
Right.
I don't want Bryce Harper to play in the All-Star.
Now, the thing about baseball, though, it's not a contact sport. And if he plays, he'll play one inning, maybe two.
It's a contact sport. If a pitcher loses control of the ball and hits you in the face,
well, of course, yes, but it's not. It's not designed to be a contact sport. Yeah. But I'm totally with you on that. The All-Star time is also, a little bit of white knuckling. You don't want to see any of your guys go down in the All-Star game. But I think All-Star injuries are rare. So,
but actually, I think the best thing for the Phillies about the All-Star game this year is that Zach Wheeler can't pitch in it.
Right.
Because he's pitching the game before.
Yeah. So perfect.
It's that's perfect. Good way to work that out.
Yeah. And speaking of pitching on the Phillies, I mean, they have between Wheeler, Suarez, and Nola, they have 3 guys right now on pace for 20 wins.
Sure.
And the last team to do that, I believe, was the Baltimore Orioles in the 1960s. They had 3 20-game winners. Yeah, It was Jim Palmer, Oh, God, Dave McNally, and I can't remember the third guy. I probably should, but it doesn't matter. So that, I mean, of course, look, we got 80 plus games to go here.
Sure.
So anything could happen. But yeah, that's a good thing that Wheeler, he's actually going to get an all-star break, even though he's on the all-star team.
Yeah, and actually, I think one of the coolest things for the Phils, so if you don't know this, newsflash, they have 7 all-star players.
Yep.
Which is a club record for the Phillies.
Yep.
And I imagine somebody probably had more at some point. Somebody probably had 8 or 9 some year, but I'm sure it's up there. I'm sure it's up there. Maybe you can do some.
Yeah, you go for it. Go for it and talk. I'll try to figure this out.
But, the 2 that I was most excited about making the all-star team was the pitchers, Jeff Hoffman and Max Strom.
Yeah.
So, if you really think about it, it's very rare that middle relievers make an all-star team.
Right. It is rare. You're right.
It's usually your starting pitchers and then all the guys who have the league lead in saves.
Right.
So I think just the fact that Strom and Hoffman made the all-star game was really kind of like a testament to the great seasons those guys are having.
Yeah, last year the Braves and the Rangers made history. I'm trying to see here.
I think the Braves had 7 last year.
Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, they had 8.
Did they?
And so did Texas. So that's the MLB record. Now that happened to be last year. So, but still, 7 all-stars. Well, look, the Phillies are 58-32. They come into the break. Well, not the break. The break's not for another week and a half, but they come into tonight. They're going to be playing the Dodgers tomorrow at home, but they just lost 2 out of 3 from the Braves. But before that, they were pretty hot. And at 58-32, they're still, I think, the best record in baseball.
Yeah, they are. And look, I mean, against the Braves, I think the lack of having Schwarber, Harper, and Real Muto in the lineup, eventually caught up to them. Plus the fact of, the other part of it is some of the Phillies pitchers have pitched so well this year.
Yeah, surprising. Yeah.
That they're just, I mean, like Ranger Suarez wasn't going to finish the year with a 1.7 ERA.
Probably.
And Chris Sanchez wasn't either.
Right.
So the both of them have they've each had 1 or 2 bad starts in a row. So, I think, you have a combination of that, and then your big hitters not playing. You go up against a good team like the Braves, and hey, if you take 1 out of 3, that's fine. We're still 8 games up.
That's next weekend, buddy. Steve chimes in. Phil's going to break by playing the Pirates this weekend. That's next weekend. But yeah, I mean, I think that we've talked about this all season long. What they're doing right now is they're building a cushion for that inevitable streak somewhere in the second half of the season where things aren't really clicking on all cylinders. And look, you've started to see some things happen, some injuries.
Right.
Thankfully not serious injuries, but the kind of stuff that, we go back to the Sixers. As long as they tread water and play 500 ball while they get through these injuries, you look at that as kind of a rest for some of these players. If they're not serious injuries, you get to rehab from the injury, take a little bit of break from the everyday pressure, and come back stronger so that you make a push into the playoffs. So you are once again playing your best baseball in late September, early October. That is the key. If you ride this, if they somehow, I mean, the Braves are a prime example of this the last couple years. Mm-hmm. They basically played incredible baseball all year long. Right. And when it came to the playoffs, they could push into the playoffs, but they couldn't reach the high ground.
Right.
And you have to wonder at some point if that pressure of, we've played at this high level all year, pretty much without a dip. Now we have to play at the same level. Whereas it's a psychological thing. I mean, we talk about analytics all the time and everybody talks about analytics, But man, especially baseball, it is a psychological thing. One little thing goes wrong with your swing and you're trying to correct it. Next thing you know, every time you go up to bat, that's what's on your mind. And you get into a 1 for 44 slump. And what you don't want to have happen is have your, half your lineup get there.
Right.
Like the Pirates. They seem to be in a perpetual slump. So I think it's a good thing that A, you have the All-Star break. B, there's a couple minor injuries. Of course, you never wish for injuries, but there's a couple minor injuries. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is the Phillies have a luxury right now, I think. I don't think they really have a glaring need. But they have the opportunity. I mean, we've talked about closer, but
well, you know what? To be honest, I'm not really so sure that closer is the need anymore.
Right. That's what I was trying to get you there last week.
Because I mean, like Jeff Hoffman's got like 8 saves on a 1-something ERA, and he's in the All-Star game.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, you don't need to give away like some really good, prospects to get a reliever.
Now, Kimbrel does have 22 save with the Orioles and a 1-something ERA. So just thought I'd bring that up.
Well, just wait.
Just wait. Just wait till the playoffs.
Just wait till his arm falls off.
Yeah. They are leaning on him. But anyway.
But that's one I never wish to see again.
Yeah. Well, right. Steve is saying, are the Phils going to make a trade? And I guess
they definitely are.
Yeah.
Now, the reason is this: if the Phillies do have one weak spot, okay, they need one outfielder to be better.
Right.
Okay. So, and the issue there is, okay, so Nick Castellanos is going to be in right field. That's locked down. He's having an okay year. I mean, he's probably got like 12 home runs. He's hitting like 240, something like that. He'll be fine. The big problem is left field and center.
Right.
So in center, you've got Rojas, who's a great defender, but he's hitting like 230. Okay. Also in center, you've got Christian Pache, who is also a really good defender, but he is hitting worse. He's hitting around like 200.
196.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you've got Marsh, who plays a good amount in left field, and Marsh is pretty good. I mean, like but I think Marsh is maybe a little bit more of a platoon player. Like he is, I think he's hitting around like 270.
261. His OPS is 752.
And the problem with Marsh is that he crushes right-handed pitching, but he's bad against lefties.
Yeah.
So that's why he kind of has to platoon. So, and then the other guy that they have that can play the outfield, but more so they use him in the infield, is Whit Merrifield. And Whit Merrifield is probably the biggest disappointment the Phillies have had this year.
Yeah, batting 197 with a 561 OPS.
Yeah, well, and worse than that, I actually just learned today, he hasn't had an extra base hit since June 7th.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, like, so he's really been terrible. So
he's struggling.
Well, he was the guy that I think they paid him $7 or $8 million, and he's the guy who's supposed to be the veteran professional hitter,
the answer.
Who's going to come in and he's going to hit 280 for you in 12 home runs and like part-time duty.
Right.
Now he's not that at all.
Not now. No.
So I know my feeling on what's going to happen is that they're probably going to release him at some point. They might even release Pache, kind of use Rojas and Marsh as a platoon and sign, trade for a center fielder.
What about the rumors I'm hearing about Cody Bellinger?
Well, here's the rumors. So the rumors are the guy from Chicago, what's his name? Aguilar, or he played for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Luis.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
I do.
He's a guy who hit 38 home runs last year.
Oh, Chicago White Sox. Yeah. Luis Roberts.
Right. Luis Roberts.
Yeah. Not Aguilar, not Nelson Aguilar.
Right. So there's him, but the issues with him though, is he's always injured.
Yeah.
And he had a great year last year where he hit 38 home runs and he's a great fielder. but he's not done much this year.
Well, he started the year injured.
Yeah, started the year injured, but he has not picked it up yet.
Yeah.
Now maybe that's also hard to do when you're on the White Sox and you're the worst team in baseball.
Yeah.
But he's an option. Then I'll tell you the option that I like the most. Now Cody Bellinger is also an option. However, that's the one where they don't yet know if he's available.
Well, that, and also he did just sign a big contract.
And the other thing is that he also is a lefty.
Yeah.
And we've got plenty of good left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
But the guy that I kind of like out of the bunch is Jazz Chisholm from the
Miami.
Miami.
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of like more of a spark plug kind of player.
Yeah.
You know, like he does have some power, but he hits in the gaps, gets on and can steal bases. And
he would fit the identity of the Phillies.
Yeah. I think he would fit us well. Although I have heard some folks feel like he is a real me type guy, and they felt like maybe he wouldn't click on the Phillies.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like, well, it's easy to be a me guy when you're on a team that stinks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think if you come in the locker room and, you've got, Harper and JT and Schwarber looking at you, you're not going to act like an ass.
Yeah. You would hope.
Wouldn't you think?
Well, you would hope.
You would think.
Egos are a lot different today than they used to be.
Right.
And it's interesting you bring that up. I have two things I want to talk about with you.
There's also there's a guy on the Oakland A's as well.
Yep.
Who plays the outfield. I can't remember what his name.
I don't remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Well, and he is under club control, I think.
Here it is. Steve Flitch, Brent Rooker from.
That's right, Rooker. So I a couple things. First, in talking about the culture, 248, 18 home runs at DH and outfield. Yeah, Brent Rooker from the A's. I was watching an interview with Joe Madden online. And you know who Joe Madden was, right?
Yeah.
The
previous coach
for the Cubs, the Rays. Didn't he won the World Series with the Cubs
and the Marlins.
Right.
He won with the Cubs. Yeah.
And he basically was saying that baseball is now the me culture, and that the real problem is it's a multifaceted problem, in that there's no such thing really as the minor leagues anymore. The minor leagues don't really exist. A lot of those teams are going under. If a player shows any sort of moxie, especially from a pitching perspective, and has a live arm, they bring him up real quick. So the hitters aren't facing necessarily the best pitching in the minor leagues to develop. And everything's so me, where they're, a lot of the coaches in baseball are now coming more from like institutes that teach you how to be a coach, as opposed to growing up in the game, being a player, becoming a coach.
Okay.
So it used to be that the game was passed down through previous players to either their kin or becoming a coach. They're keen to becoming a coach, and it became a culture and a team identity. And now with these huge out of whack contracts, that it's become more of a me identity. So to have that culture, that winning culture, is very, very hard to come by. And Joe Madden basically summed that up and said, I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But bringing that to the Phillies, they do have that culture right now. Right. They have a nucleus of players, and it's showing on the field. So it can be done, but it takes some serious planning. And I think sometimes you have to give up talent to get leadership. And in the Phillies case, you look at a guy like Kyle Schwarber, okay? From a pure baseball perspective, he is not what you would consider a multi-talented superstar. He doesn't hit for average. He strikes out a lot. He doesn't play the field very well, but he's got the attitude, the team mentality. He's got the culture mentality, and he knows what his role is, and he does it very, very well.
Right.
And then you go to a guy like Bryce Harper, who is a generational talent, and you throw him in there. But not only is he a generational talent, he of course he's got an ego. He's a great baseball player, but he's got a humble ego. He's like, the team first. I want to win. I want to use the talent I have to win. That's hard to do in professional sports, but it's showing on the field with the Phillies this year. So you have to be careful about who you add. Is Luis Roberts that kind of guy? Is Chisholm from Miami, is he that kind of guy? But as long as your management understands that's what you're going to do, and you bring the right players in, you've got a chance of putting together a pretty good string. And now, of course, the measuring stick for any franchise is the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they haven't won a championship in a few years, but they're getting damn close.
Right.
They're getting damn close. And right now, I think at this time last year, we would not have said this. This year is probably the year. That's the way I feel. This is the year that I think that they can push it over the top.
Well, this would be the year that would be the most disappointing if they don't.
Well, yeah, you can go down that road too.
Yeah, because the first year was just kind of like,
oh my God,
we're surprised.
Yes.
How did we get here? We're in the World Series.
Yeah.
The second year was, oh, we really blew that against the frickin' Diamondbacks.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But we still made it to the NLCS.
Right.
And this year, now it's like, okay, now in the regular season, you're the best team in baseball.
We're going to do it.
It's time to win it.
Yeah, it's time to win it. And that's, there's only a few franchises that are going through that right now, and it's hard to put together. You could talk about the Orioles in the same way. Now they put the team together differently.
I think the Yankees are on a slide, aren't they? Like 4-14 in the last 8.
God, yeah. Thank God. Yeah, I can't stand the Yankees, the evil empire. So. Yeah. Now the anecdote I was going to tell you about Schwarber, I saw a video of him.
I thought Harper.
Not Schwarber. Yeah, Harper. He was talking about. Of course, Steve has to chime in as our resident Yinzer Pirates fan. Could be your Sid Bream year versus the Braves.
The funny thing I think would be, for Steve, is that realize that while Sid Bream sort of serves as a painful memory to those Pittsburgh Pirate fans, I would say at this stage of the game, what was that, 25 years ago?
92 or 93.
Yeah. So at this stage of the game, I don't think anybody from Philadelphia even knows who Sid Bream is.
Number one, I think a few people do. But number two, it's like they've been so bad. Like I would take that play today as a Pirates fan over anything they put on the field in the last 10 years.
Sure. But what did Harper do?
Harper was on a podcast, and he was talking about when he was younger and he was playing in like not the National League, like the National Baseball Classic or something in college, one of those things.
Yeah, like Team USA.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure which one it was, but I guess his family would struggle. They didn't have a lot of money, and he needed a bat. Mm-hmm. And his dad literally said, look, I can't afford to buy another, brand new pro style bat for you. But what Bryce Harper had was he had a Pete Rose bat, one of Pete Rose's actual bats that had been signed by Pete Rose, and it was regulation. Mm-hmm. And so what he did is he wiped off Pete Rose's signature, and he used that bat.
Yeah, no, I did. I heard.
Yeah, which tells you how important Pete Rose was after all of that bullshit that he pulled, which I think is a tragedy. But, I've waffled back and forth, and it's appropriate to talk about Pete Rose because obviously he spent quite a few years with the Phillies in the World Series.
And was the missing piece for the World Series victory.
That's right. So, but I've waffled on this for many years where I've thought, whatever he did, he still played hard on the field. He still holds the hit record.
I think,
but he broke the cardinal rule. You can't have exceptions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing.
As I get older, that's the way I feel.
I don't feel that way, actually. I mean, I sort of feel like, here's the bottom line. Like, and I know this is probably not true, but I almost feel like whoever decided to ban Pete Rose from baseball because he gambled on the sport, which leads to, the potential lack of credibility of the sport.
He gambled on his own team.
Right. Okay. But let me put it to you this way. Like, if you watched Pete Rose play as a player, he never tried to lose.
That is very true.
Never.
No, that is very true. And he says when he bet on his team, it was when he was the manager, and he always bet on them to win.
Right.
Well, can we believe that? I don't know, but
maybe not. But I always felt like it should be separated.
I don't know, man.
you ban him as a manager, but you let his stats stay as the player.
Yeah, I mean, he did. He was a great player.
He had the most hits
And
anybody ever.
Yeah, and especially given the fact you look at his frame and the way he was built, and it was like, no way that guy should be able to play baseball.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but congratulations to the Phillies. They're 7 All-Stars, having a fantastic year. Let's hope that the All-Star break, when it comes in a week and a half, gives them well-needed rest.
Yep. We do have Schwarber coming back tomorrow night.
Okay. Maybe he'll launch a Schwarber bomb first at bat.
And they also say that Bryce might be back in a couple games as well.
Interesting.
So, and that's,
I mean, would you rest him? I mean, you got the Dodgers, but then you have the A's after that.
I mean, yeah, but I guess here's the thing. Like, and that's always the big question, like, all right, well, okay. It makes sense that like both theories make sense. Theory A is if he's ready to play, let him play. Right. Theory B is if if you don't have to play him, rest him and be 120% sure instead of 100% sure.
Yeah.
But like, for example, I mean, I read all the reports and, yesterday he ran the bases and was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So it's like, he can come back. Why would you not want his bat in the lineup?
I agree with you. I think it's a really fine line. It's a really fine line. More rest and rehab can strengthen the injury and bring it back. The last thing you want is to let him play a couple games before the All-Star break and re-aggravate it. Of course, he is going to play in the All-Star game. He also has the option of saying, I'll be on the bench, but don't put me in,
right?
Which I don't think Bryce Harper would ever do.
Now, also, Steve also says here, betting now is so much a part of the game, ridiculous that he's not in. And then the other thing I want to say too is like, let's also, if you say like, if the whole cardinal sin, if you got to make it the same for everybody, well, if you have to make it the same for everybody, then put Pete Rose in now because you're not doing anything about Shohei Ohtani.
Right. Well, yeah. But there's with Shohei, that's a tough call because supposedly his interpreter was betting his money and he didn't know. And we could sit here and say
do we believe that?
Well, but that's the thing. Whether we believe it or not doesn't matter. The truth is what the truth is, and we'll never know the truth.
That to me is very similar to Pete Rose saying, "I never bet on us to lose."
Yeah, that's you're right.
Kind of like, huh?
Yeah, your guy was betting, and
but it was your money.
Yeah,
and like you had no idea that like $4 million was being thrown around.
Yeah. You don't think that maybe you were like, hey, listen, I need you to bet for me because I love betting.
Right. Or like you're not like, hey, listen, by the way, tonight I am 4 for 8 with 3 home runs against this pitcher. Put down an anytime home run bet for me tonight.
Yeah, of $10,000.
Right.
Exactly. Because I can afford it. Right. I'm with you. On that. But in baseball, the rule is not that you can't gamble. The rule is you can't gamble on baseball. Mm-hmm. So you look at the most recent guy, that Tucupita Marcano. He gambled on baseball. Mm-hmm. And basically the interviews that I heard, like Derek Shelton, they interviewed him in Pittsburgh because he was on the Pirates last year. And Shelton said what was amazing to him is that in all of the preseason meetings where they're, you're new with the club, player meetings and everything, one of the very first things that they talk about and they hammer home on a regular basis, and they actually have brochures on it and flyers up and stuff around the clubhouse that says gambling is okay. Gambling on baseball is not okay. He's like, if there's any player, there is no player from the minor leagues all the way through MLB that it's not hammered into their head from the day they become part of professional baseball that you cannot gamble on baseball. You can play poker all you want. You can gamble on football. You can gamble on the presidential race. You cannot gamble on baseball. And that's always been the rule. Yeah. So that's the thing where I say, I agree that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame just based on his stats. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. But he broke the cardinal rule. He knew what the rule was, and then he denied it. If you let him in for any reason, you're saying that rule doesn't matter. You're just saying that rule doesn't matter. If you have Hall of Fame stats, you get in. I've waffled on this. I've thought about what you've said. I've waffled on it.
Here's the other thing, too. Like, I also think, though, that you can't say, you can't punish people, even for gambling on baseball, okay? If baseball pays you. I'm sorry, if gambling sites pay you. Like, I don't know who it is that's, sponsors them, but like, if they're sponsored by DraftKings or FanDuel or whoever, like you can't advertise bet on baseball rest of the world and say, all right, we're taking him out of the game because he bet on baseball.
I hear what it's kind of like a double standard.
It's a double standard.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Yeah. Like you can't benefit from it and then also try to punish people for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just the way I feel.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like we have much more important matters to fret over
than gambling on baseball and who does it.
Exactly.
I agree, but there's something about the integrity of the game, which I think is slowly starting to wane because of these monster contracts that are getting paid out. And that's just one more thing. If they start to loosen the rules there, then
what do the contracts have to do with?
Well, I guess I was listening to the Infinity Sports Network. There's a guy on there named Mark Ryan who I really, really like. And I would love for Infinity Sports to pick us up. Mm-hmm. I would love for them to pay us to talk about them. But I think CBS Sports on the radio, they switched over to Infinity Sports.
Okay.
This guy, Mark Ryan, he's out of Detroit. I love this guy. I love the way he thinks. And he basically was talking about NIL. Mm-hmm. And what its original, and for those of you who are not in the know for this, NIL is name, image, and likeness, mm-hmm. and it's about college players getting paid.
Right.
And he echoed my sentiments exactly on this. NIL is ruining college football. It's destroying it. And we don't have to get into a debate here. We'll do another show on that some other time. But what he pointed out was something very, very interesting to me. NIL originally, what its intent was, hey, I go to Iowa, mm-hmm. and there's a local pizza shop or a local car dealer, mm-hmm. and they want me to say buy your car from this guy or get a hot dog here, right. and they're going to pay me a little money.
Right.
In the past, I'd get in trouble and I'm out of the sport.
Right.
But that was designed to be able to allow me to benefit from that.
Right.
But it's turned into the biggest schools
come here for $4 million
and they pay you. And the argument that he was getting was from his callers was, well, they all make so much money on football. And he stopped them right in their tracks. And he said, of the 166 biggest college football programs in the country, do you know how much actually make a profit? 25. Is
that right?
The rest of them lose money.
Interesting.
They lose money. Number one. Number two, the point he made was that, Phil, what's his name? The founder of Nike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he's an Oregon guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And now he wants to see Oregon win a national championship before he dies. He's 86.
Okay.
He's throwing tens of millions of dollars at Oregon so they can get the best players.
Right.
So basically what he said is you've created a professional sport. College football is the only secondary level of a professional sport that we pay attention to. Does anybody watch minor league baseball? No. Does anybody watch any other football network, any other football league other than the NFL? No. But they do watch college football. Mm-hmm. And for you to say
college basketball, you could say,
well, yeah, he was talking about the NBA and college basketball too. But, and for you to say that that it benefits the sport, and that the players, oh, they're poor and they work so hard. And he's like, no, they get a full scholarship, which at most schools is worth at least 200 grand. They get complete room and board. They get professional health care. They get professional training. They literally, every player, every college team spends an average of $40,000 to $50,000 a year extra on that player to provide world-class medical care, training facilities, stuff like that, on top of the scholarship, room and board. So it's not that they're poor. Mm-hmm. They may be poor when they come into school, right, but they're getting handed a ton of money they would have never seen to play football already. I agree with him. I don't know what you guys think, but I agree with him. And I said this a couple years ago when we were on the other porch on our other show. I said it's going to ruin college football. Does a bowl game mean anything anymore? Really?
Well, no, because it's the national championship playoff format.
And half the time, who plays?
Well,
the backups.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Right.
But the starters will play if they're in the Final Four. And then next year, I think does it expand to like 8 or 12 next year?
12, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we digress there. We've got a lot more to talk about here. Something really exciting going on to round out our show. You can follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We drop it right after the show. Please subscribe, leave a review. We would love that. You can also follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. We always drop the show there. We're actually live on YouTube right now. And if you are listening to the podcast, understand that we are live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. Last page tonight. This is something that it's not sports, but it's fast becoming a sport.
It is.
And that is the 2024 Philadelphia Cheesesteak Challenge is on, and it is blowing up.
It is blowing up.
Thousands of votes already in the first 2 rounds.
Thousands of votes.
Thousands of votes.
So we had last year's winner, Curly's Comfort Food in Levittown. They defeated
Lilo's.
Curly's. Lilo's was second last.
That's what I'm saying. They defeated Lilo's last year.
Talking about last year.
I jumped the gun, Schwaber.
You did.
I'm so damn excited about this.
You jumped the gun.
Okay.
So anyway, this year you had Curly's with the number 1 seed went up against a newcomer that I put in there, Delco Steaks.
Yep. I love the logo, the 2 steers on the either side of Delco's.
So Delco Steaks made a darn nice showing.
Yeah.
Now, like in the past, I mean, generally what happens is I take 3 or 4 joints that maybe the previous year finished, somewhere between 28 and 32, and they didn't get a lot of votes. They might have got like 15 votes or something like that. So I tried to sort of pay attention to these, cheesesteak joints that I guess are maybe gaining more steam now anyway. And so the first one I put in was Delco. And, even though they lost to Curly's, they put up 72 votes.
Yeah.
Which was really darn good. And then yesterday we had Lilo's, who came in second last year, and I put them up against Van Horn Steaks in Media, PA. And Van Horn's put up a 227 spot.
Yeah, nice.
So they actually almost could have beaten Curly's.
Yeah.
So they were amazing. And now today we've got the 3rd seed Jay's steak and hoagie joint going up against Gazzo's, and I knew Gazzo's was one that everybody was super pumped about and really wanted them in last year. So I kind of made them the highest of the 3 that I was adding.
There's like 1,100 votes on this.
There's 1,100 votes so far. Today.
Yeah. So you have no idea where they are right now.
I don't know where they are.
And you count these by hand.
I count them by hand. And like for example, last night when I was counting Lilo's and Van Horn's, we ended up somewhere close to about 850 to 900 votes.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just going check.
Yeah. You're doing the old Fiverr.
Flash.
Right.
I mean, it probably took me like at least 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to take you a couple hours tonight.
It's going to take me longer tonight. But what I want what I want those guys to know, we'll see if Gazos pulls off an upset. I'd say there's a chance.
Yeah.
But for Van Horns and for Delco, even though they didn't win that first round, what I do is, the first, the awards go, I put up the entire list at the end.
Right.
So I rank from 1 to 32. And so obviously if you're in the final 16, you get a spot in the final 16.
Right.
But, let's say somebody like a Delco or, Van Horns or maybe a Gazos, if they don't win, they're pretty much guaranteed to be in that like 17, 18, 19 type range, which basically means next year they're going to have a real good chance of getting a lot further.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the way this is done is it's done bracket style, just like your college tournament. Pat Off Track is late to the party, is missing to call the games. Now I need to floss after hearing of all this cheesesteak talk. Okay, well, good for you. Go floss. Pat's right back off track again.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
So the way it's done is it's a bracket challenge. So you've got an initial round of 32, then you go to the Sweet 16, then you go to the Elite 8, the Final Four, and the championship. What we really want to highlight is something that one of the cheesesteak joints put out a social media post for, is that this is free. This isn't one of those best of where Mark goes out and tries to hit up all these cheesesteak joints and get them to pay to be a part of this. This is brought on by you, the fans of Philadelphia Beautiful, over the years. This is the 6th annual.
Yep.
Over the years, telling Philadelphia Beautiful who your favorite cheesesteak joint is in the greater Philadelphia area. Lilo's is in New Jersey, right?
Right.
So it's not just the city of Philly. It's what you would consider greater Philadelphia. There's a lot of great cheesesteak places out there. And, we went to school in Philly. Mark's from Philly. I went to Drexel. That's where I learned to eat cheesesteaks. I actually don't think I ever had a cheesesteak, even though I was originally from York, only 90 miles away.
Yep.
I never had a cheesesteak until I met you. So, and cheesesteak is definitely my favorite hoagie style sandwich.
Right.
No doubt about it.
Yep.
But it is not a paid promotion. These places are mostly local businesses, so they thrive on your patronage and anything that we can do to help them. So, for Delco's and for Van Horns and Gazos, which we don't know who the winner is going to be, Gazos or Jay's Steak and Hoagie Joint. But for those guys, listen, just because they lost, it just means they didn't get enough votes. Doesn't mean they're a bad steak. It actually means they're a pretty damn good steak to make this competition. Support them. Go out, buy a cheesesteak, enjoy it at their restaurant, or if you get it on DoorDash or however you get it, and put their social media out there. Let people know how good it is. We want to give them support, and we want their support right back, because we want this to be the biggest cheesesteak contest in Philadelphia, benefiting local Philadelphia businesses.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Schwaber. I'm on a high horse now. You go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and to me, this is more real than your typical list.
Yes.
Okay? Because here's the bottom line. When you see a list of like, the top 20 cheesesteaks or whatever, it's just one person's opinion.
True.
I mean, so what does it matter what my opinion is? I'd rather hear from 1,000 people across Philadelphia.
Right. Right.
Now, look, that also means that, we all have different tastes.
Yes.
Taste buds.
Yeah.
So we're not all going to be happy with the winners.
Yes.
When some of us are going to say, how in the world could Van Horns lose to Lilo's? Right. You know, and we get that. Right. But, this is just basically, I mean, there's one requirement. You have to be tuned into social media.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're tuned into social media, then you can vote for your place.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And a lot of the owners get into it, and they, send out messages to their whole crew, all their supporters, all their patrons to put a vote in for them. And that's great. And the other thing that I just think is really cool about the contest is what's great, because I went out to Curly's to present them with the bracket for the championship last year, And, you really get to see what it means to those folks because, he told us like, hey, I know it brings in so much business when this kind of stuff happens.
Yep.
And what's cool about it is, what's going to happen is like, so for example, like, even though like a Van Horn's, and Delco, even though they didn't win that first round, I guarantee you there's going to be a slew of people going out and trying those steaks now. Because, and you even see it in some comments, like, I'm voting for Curly's because I love them so much, but I never been to Delco's. I'll have to get out there and try it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff that we like to do. We like supporting our local businesses and, helping them, earn a good living and making you guys happy with some good food in your stomach.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's better than I'm hungry for a friggin' cheesesteak right now, to be honest with you.
Now I'm freaking jonesing for one.
Yeah, absolutely. And Amy May, your wife, went out there with you. She says she loved meeting last year's winner. That was Curly. And they were great folks and great food. And we sent another guy from Pittsburgh, our guy from our Pittsburgh show, Steve. His kids went to Temple. He went to Curly's and said he really enjoyed it. We have a bunch of Curly's wing sauce that we've tried, which is great.
We got lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And we'll be coming out again. Whoever wins this year, we're going to come out and we're going to visit you, and we might throw in a visit to 2 or 3 other places.
Yeah, that would be great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 3 days, 3 cheesesteak joints. At least the top 2.
Yeah.
At least the top 2.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it for the cheesesteak challenge. Now listen, if you want to vote, all you have to do is follow Philadelphia Beautiful and hit that notification button, and it'll notify you when Mark posts. And not only does he post the cheesesteak challenge, but there are literally thousands of people that send Mark pictures every day around the greater Philadelphia area. And if you're lucky enough, he will post your picture, give you the proper credit. And so keep that up. The page is growing like crazy. It's got over 42,000 followers now. The goal is to get this baby up into the 6 figures. And the more stuff we do like this, the bigger it'll go, and the more we'll be able to help Philadelphia and the local businesses there. So the next cheesesteak challenge, the next round is going to be tomorrow morning. When do you generally, let's leave it with this. When do you generally, you usually post it around 8 in the morning or so?
Yeah, I'll typically post it. It all depends on when I get up.
Right.
So it'll be.
But you're an early riser, so
it's usually sometime between 6:30 and 8.
Right. You'll post it. And when do you cut off the voting?
Well, I generally cut off the voting at about 10 p.m.
Right.
Now what will happen though is let's say, for example, if it's 10 p.m. and it's close, maybe it's like within 20 votes or something, then I will wake up in the morning and count the votes that came in after 10 p.m. till the morning.
Gotcha.
To determine the winner, just in case.
Just in case. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's generally around 10 is when I shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are completely neutral. You do not, you may have a cheesesteak joint that is your own personal favorite, but it goes unnamed. Right. And it is not looked upon favorably or unfavorably in this contest.
Correct.
So there you have it. Tune into Philadelphia Beautiful tomorrow. Check your Facebook page in the morning. Actually, look, if you're a fan of either, who is it right now? Look
what Amy says about me here.
Mark can go to 3 a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I could too. And Steve says early riser, of course, because he gets up at 4. Right. Who cares?
Right.
I call that idiotic.
That's called a manufacturing engineer.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Working in a plant.
Yeah. Yeah. But I need to shut up because I don't get up until later than all of you.
Yeah. So all right, it's time to shut it down.
Yeah, it's time to shut it down. So go to Philadelphia Beautiful. Go to the Facebook page today. Scroll back a little bit. If you're a fan of Jay's Steak and Hoagie Joint, or you're a fan of Gazzo's, the voting is in right now. All you do is you vote on the Philadelphia Beautiful post. You put number whatever. It explains what to do. Type the number.
Today it's number 30 for Gazzo's
and number 3
for Jay's Steak and Hoagie Joint. And only vote once, because I do notice if you vote more than once.
Yeah, that's true. And also, one thing that happened last year and is happening, these restaurants, they will repost the post.
Right.
You cannot vote on the restaurant's page.
Right. You have to vote on our page. But they usually do tell you.
Yeah.
You have to go to
the page.
Beautiful's page.
Go to the page. All right. Excellent. Can't wait. It's really blowing up this year. I think this is going to be the best contest ever.
Oh, no doubt.
And I'm looking forward to eating some goddamn good cheesesteaks.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Me too.
All right. That's it for us. Here we go. There you go. All right. Thank you for watching the Sports Porch Philadelphia. If you're watching live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, all over the world. And of course, we're going to drop this podcast in a couple minutes right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or
anywhere you get your freaking podcast.
That's right. And you can always follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube at Sports Porch Philadelphia. I am your technical director, and I am out.
And I am no one.
You're the Grand Schwabini.
I am the Grand Schwabini.
The Cheesesteak King.
The Cheesesteak Meister.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go Phils.